The U.S. Special Forces are the tip of our nation's spear. These elite combat units excel at nighttime combat. They are equipped with superior hardware and superior training to dominate the darkness. Larry Vickers is a former member of the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, also known as Delta Force. He teaches tactical firearms courses for civilians at the U.S. Training Center in Mayock, North Carolina. Violent crimes occur at every hour, day or night. Civilians who find themselves facing a threat in low light can utilize the same techniques to give our Special Forces units an edge. The key is to utilize the proper tools, such as the handheld tactical lights from Insight Technology.
Handheld lights have become an indispensable tool whether you're in the armed forces, law enforcement community, or an armed civilian. White light is a useful tool for potentially blinding an attacker, illuminating a target for shooting it, or most importantly, positively identifying a threat. The techniques I use integrated with a handgun in a basic white light class are the Harry's technique.
The Harry's technique is a popular way to deploy a handheld light with a firearm. The flashlight is held like an ice pick, while the backs of the hands press against each other.
Or the push-pull technique.
The push-pull technique is used with older flashlights with the activation switch on the side.
In addition, the cigar technique is also highly favored.
The cigar technique can be utilized when using modern tactical lights such as the Insight HX150. The light is held between the fingers while the palm of the hand activates the switch.
Techniques that also have merit include the handheld technique out to the side to divert attention. The problem with this one, and one of the reasons why it's not my favorite, it's hard to coordinate where the light is pointing and where your gun is aiming. A technique I do not recommend is the neck hold technique. Not only does it backlight your gun and make it difficult to precisely aim it, you're also illuminating your head, and that's a good way to take a bullet to the brain housing group. If you're integrating a handgun and a handheld white light together, you need to have a right side technique and a left side technique. What I mean by that is you need to have the ability to use the white light around the right side cover and the ability to use the white light with a different technique around left side cover. Going around a right corner, I prefer a Harry's technique. Okay, going around this left corner, I can use the push-pull technique, but with a pistol like this Beretta, I'm going to use the cigar technique instead. That's why it's good to have more than one technique in your bag of tricks. One of the most important principles for any low light work is to keep it simple. For law enforcement or military that get more opportunities to train at night, you may want to try different techniques. But many armed civilians don't have the opportunity to train at night like those in the military or in law enforcement. So picking one technique like the versatile Harry's may make more sense in their case.
That bump in the night might not be the cat. There are 400,000 home fires a year in the U.S., and there are 3.6 million home invasions. You already own an extinguisher to put out a fire, but are you prepared to defend yourself for a threat 9 times more likely to occur? At the Fort Harmar Rifle Range in Marietta, Ohio, tactical firearms instructor Ken Hackathorn is working with a CCW permit holder Gary Powers and SWAT commander David Bowie at a 360-degree shoot house on a low-light shooting scenario where a homeowner has to clear his residence from a violent intruder in low light.
Here we are at the Fort Harmar Rifle Club live fire shoot house. We're going to do a little low light work. So we have a choice here, handheld light, weapon mounted light. Either can work, both have good applications. The advantage of the handheld light is, for example, you can move it around a lot and you don't have to point a weapon at a particular object. When you're using a light on a weapon, remember, if you're searching with it, trying to locate, you're also pointing a loaded firearm at everything you're looking at. I tell people, practice with a flashlight and you want to be able to use it in such a manner that your light's going to coincide with where your gun's pointing. It does you no good to aim your target in one direction and have the light pointed high, low, left, or right. You've got to practice coinciding the line of bore and the flashlight. Now we got a little scenario set up where we're basically going to ask my buddy Gary Powers to come down the hallway in this house as if he's searching, and he's going to have to come to into this room, and he's actually going to have a series of targets that are threat targets and no shoots. If you leave the light on to assist in your shooting, remember, the longer the light on, the more dangerous you. White lights are bullet magnets. The longer they're on, the more likely you're going to get a round or shots coming in your direction. So you remember, use the light sparingly, and once it's been on, you want to, and turn it off quickly, you want to move. Don't be where the light was. Now let's see how Gary solves the problem, first using a weapon-mounted light. Going hot in the house. You know, one of the things I find really interesting is most people, whether they're in the military, whether they're soldiers or private sector, when they want to go to the range, they want a nice, beautiful, sunny day. If it's cold, if it's snowing, if it's raining, nobody wants to go to the range and train. Nobody wants to practice. Over 80% of the time that you have to use a handgun to defend yourself with, you're in limited or low light situation. So the reality here is, folks, is you better learn to practice in adverse conditions. That's how you learn to stay alive in the real world. Okay, here's what's going on. I'm going to have my buddy Dave Bowie here do a little exercise where he's basically going to simulate that he's indoors, it's at night, it's a darkened area, he's concerned about the safety of his own home, he's going to do a search and clear exercise, he's going to utilize a handheld flashlight and his handgun, and he's going to use a technique where he basically combines them both. Short flashes of light to locate the target. When he does, it's going to be on a bit longer so he can do an identification and continue that sweep around. When he engages a threat target, watch the technique he uses. And by the way, you're going to notice that that door, he's going to make sure that there's nobody behind it, and he's going to use a technique we call a body check or body press. He's going to forcefully shove his body against it to pin that door to the wall or pin anybody that's behind it there momentarily while he completes his job. You want to know how to do it right, and Dave's about to show you. Dave?
Execute, execute. Too many people think advanced skills are something different than the basics. Advanced skills oftentimes are nothing more than the basic skills done at a higher speed or at a better level because they're practiced more. My family, my wife has been taught the concealed carry methods, safety, and basic building search tactics. There's times that she may have to deal with this situation with me not there, and I want to know when I come home everything's as safe as it was when I left.
Stop! Get out of my house!
I think everybody needs to be able to protect themselves. You don't know what society has in store for these days, and you just have to be wary of your surroundings and your situations, and you need to be protected and be able to take care of yourself and your family. You can't rely on somebody else anymore.
The flashlight or the white light is basically, remember, you're going to use what we call live. Locate, identify, engage. If you watch Dave clear this room, you'll notice he used the light first to locate target. In this case, when he found a no-shoot, he had to hit it with light to identify that it was a non-hostile. He continued to search. Same thing when his light picked up this target, he located it, he identified it, and he used it to help engage the target to neutralize it. Not only that, he had to make sure that in case there was somebody behind this door, he had to use basically a technique, in this case the body check, to make sure the door was safe and there was nobody behind there to harm him. So remember, when you think about terms of protecting yourselves or defending your own home, look at the layout of your room and make sure you are proficient in not only your firearm skill, but utilizing a flashlight to search and clear your own home.
Putting that light on that weapon is a great idea. It's been a great idea since tactical teams started using it, and it's even a greater idea when you have a whole department of officers using it.
It is impossible to predict if or when someone will be forced to take action in self-defense. If you plan on using a firearm and a white light to defend your home, you need to know the proper way to utilize these tools.
The first thing that'll give you away if you're going through a house and somebody's broken into your house and you're looking for it, you start flipping on every light in the house. First of all, the perpetrator, knows where you are. He knows how to get in a position to surprise you. Engagement with a hand light, working slowly and quietly, and moving with the weapon in close to yourself and your light and your position. If you feel that something is wrong, get ready, hit the light on it. You're going to blind them temporarily, which gives you time to protect yourself and your family.
Insight Technology supplies tactical lights and laser illuminators to the U.S. Special Forces.
Years ago, the flashlights were really inexpensive and they were designed to sell batteries. So the evolution started off into the anodized aluminum flashlight that was a little bit more robust, and it was designed to meet some situation that you put a flashlight in. And from there, law enforcement and military tactics played into the evolution. Insight always looks to user feedback. In designing any aspect of the product, we look to the users to make sure it's meeting their demands, meeting their the items they need to be able to fulfill their mission, whether it's a U.S. military mission or a law enforcement or a consumer situation such as home defense.
A fixed white light is a popular accessory for modern handguns that come equipped with rails. The handheld light is another option to consider, regardless of whether the weapon has rails. But what if shooters find themselves in low-light situations without the aid of white lights? The point shooting technique is the answer.
Whether you're law enforcement, military, or civilian, you need to have a technique to engage a threat target at night without the use of night sights, lights, or lasers. White lights mounted on handguns is a relatively recent development, and night sights just predate those by a few years. Remember, those were considered gimmicks back in the day. So you need to have a point shooting technique for engaging a threat. The one I like to use is a technique where I imagine a string tied to my chin, pulled tight to the center of the target, and I use a chin gun target technique, looking over the pistol. Now I'm going to warn you, what it doesn't take into account for, like anything else, is trigger control. So if you jerk the trigger, you're going to get poor results, just like when you use the sights. This is a good example where I'm coming from a room with adequate lighting to see my sights into a hallway that's too dark to index them for shooting on the target. This is where I'm going to use my point shoot technique of chin, gun, target, looking over the gun to engage a threat.
Please drop your weapon!
I'm here with Brian, a 16-year law enforcement veteran and also one of my students. Brian, from your point of view, when would you use this point shooting technique?
This would be very effective coming out of daylight situation, going into an abandoned building or a situation like that where you may not have power and there is no light source inside the structure. Bad things happen in all types of environments, so statistics normally show that more officers are shot either at night or low light, so we need to be training in those environments. You know, we work in this stuff 12 hours a day, every day, so we have to train and be ready for that.
I'm here with Nick, one of my students who's been in several of my classes. And Nick, let me guess, I would say you have at least one gun at home without night sights.
Correct.
Well, if you can imagine a situation where you can't find your handheld light, that's a scenario where you have to point shoot. Can you show us how to get it done?
Yes, I can.
All right.
If a shooter moves into a dimly lit room and positively identifies a threat, but does not have enough light to index the front and rear sights, the point shoot technique is the answer.
Despite the proliferation of really good weapons lights and handheld lights, remember they're battery operated and they can fail. So you need to have a point shooting technique, whether you're military, law enforcement, or civilian.
Our Special Forces units are trained and equipped to use the night to their advantage while defending our freedom abroad. Back at home, civilians can use the same tools and tactics to defend their homes. With the proper use of fixed or handheld lights, a trained shooter has no reason to fear the dark because lives depend on it.